The Fox propaganda machine was in full force and effect, not surprisingly, this weekend, trying to normalize that the leader of the Republican Party is now convicted on 34 separate felony counts on a Sunday morning interview with Donald Trump.
Fox heavily edited this interview because even with their edits and cuts, Donald Trump came across as a ranting, raving lunatic. The interview is truly remarkable. Let me share some of the highlights, or rather lowlights, of what transpired. When Donald Trump was asked about the possibility of house arrest or prison, Fox made noticeable edits to his response. There's an abrupt cut that you can see.
When it comes to the legal maze that you're still facing, and the judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
It could.
How do you face what that could look
I'm okay with it. I saw one of my lawyers the other day on television saying, oh no, you don't want to do that to the president. I said, you don't beg for anything, you just, the way it is. Think of it. They have all my books,
But Trump himself remains indifferent, suggesting he won't beg for leniency. He mentions that authorities have all his books, and then, in a not-so-subtle threat, he claims that the public wouldn't tolerate him being imprisoned or under house arrest. Contrary to his belief, the public likely supports the idea because it aligns with law and order.
But, so, that could happen. I don't know that the public would stand it, I'm not sure the public would stand for it. With a,
if you tried house arrest or...
I think it would be tough for the public to take. At a certain point, there's a breaking point.
This illustrates the recurring threats and baseless attacks from Trump and his supporters. They never focus on the facts, but rather attack the judge, the jury, the prosecutors, and even the judge's daughter. They propagate threats claiming that if Trump is convicted, the stock market will crash, or if he isn't elected, the economy will collapse. These claims are patently false. In fact, the stock market reached record highs after Trump's conviction. The only stock that suffered was Trump's own Trump Media, which lost $300 million in the last quarter while only earning $700,000 in revenue. Like many of Trump's ventures, in my opinion, Trump Media is trading at inflated valuations. This is a fairly evident opinion to hold. Furthermore, Trump claims in the interview that he never suggested Hillary Clinton should be locked up. He attempts to shift the blame onto his supporters, saying it was actually them who chanted for her imprisonment. Watch this clip where Trump backpedals.
I want to follow up on what Rachel asked you, though, because I hear you struggling with it. I hear you say it's a tough question, a bit unsure. You famously said, regarding Hillary Clinton, lock her up. You declined to do that as president.
I beat her. It's easier when you win. And they all said lock her up. And I felt, and I could have done it, but I felt it would have been a terrible thing. And then this happened to me. And so I may feel differently about it. I can't tell you, I'm not sure I can answer the question. Hillary Clinton, I didn't say lock her up, but the people would all say lock her up, lock her up. Okay, then we won. And I said pretty openly, I say, all right, come on, just relax, let's go. We gotta make our country great. Yeah. And it would have been, think of it, you lock up the wife of a president of the United States.
They want to lock you up over $130,000 of an accounting thing. And
a perfectly stated accounting thing. But, people also say, can you bring the country together? And the answer is yes. Success will bring the country together because I had it together. Before the China virus came in, I had it together. We really had it together. And it would have stayed. I think it would have stayed. Everybody was doing better. The country was doing better than it had ever done. And we're going back to those same policies and then some.
In this segment, Trump deflects responsibility and distances himself from his supporters' calls for imprisonment, a tactic he has consistently employed. This is evident in his handling of the insurrection and his general approach, always throwing others under the bus to protect himself, especially now that he faces the real possibility of incarceration. So I never said that. Those are my supporters who said that, okay? Well, why don't we just... I could probably show dozens and dozens of instances where Donald Trump said this. But let me present this example. October 16th, 2020. I could go back to the 2016 race, but let's just focus on October 16th, 2020, when Donald Trump said it.
I'll tell you something, though, and it's very... Lock them up. You shouldn't lock them up. Lock up the Bidens. Lock up Hillary. Lock them up.
By the way, then your son, Eric Trump, said his favorite chant to lead at Trump events is the lock her up chant about Hillary Clinton.
Remember that little chant that we had back in 2016? It was Drain the Swamp. We had a lot of good chants, right? Like lock her up, that was a good chant. Anybody like that chant, lock her up?
Oh, yeah.
We had lock her up. We had a lot of, what other good chants did we have in 2016? Oh, now we have Let's Go Brandon, right? We had Build a Wall. Yeah, that was a good one. But we had Drain the Swamp. Everybody remember Drain the Swamp.
And then you have all your surrogates out there saying it as well. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene saying it.
We need to put Hillary Clinton in jail. Yeah. Lock her up. That's right. We are not going to have people hacking and breaking in and spying on the President of the United States. I don't care what political party they are.
Then Donald Trump whines that certain people were allowed to testify who shouldn't have been able to. He complains about the grand jury and claims Robert Costello was not allowed to testify before the grand jury. First, what are you even talking about? It's not accurate. But secondly, Robert Costello did testify at the criminal trial. Robert Costello was the worst witness ever. The MAGA lawyer you put on the stand, against the advice of your legal team, essentially collapsed on the stand and admitted he was never actually looking out for Donald Trump's interests. He said he was just focused on helping Michael Cohen, which was proven utterly false.
And then they indict you and they go to a grand jury and they don't use Bob Costello's testimony. You know, they use almost none of it. They didn't want him before the grand jury because he's very persuasive. This judge didn't want him to talk. They shouldn't have allowed certain people to testify. It was totally wrong that they did that. So,
Then Donald Trump attacks the jury. Play the clip.
remember, Bragg didn't want to do the case. He came out. He said, there's no case, and how can you have a witness like so-and-so? I'm not allowed to mention the name. Can you believe this? This guy's allowed to have shows, television shows. I'm not allowed to mention the name. It's so unfair. But regardless, you know, you have to really play the hand that you're dealt. And then you had a jury that was, you know, from a certain persuasion. Would have been hard to do no matter what. But I did absolutely nothing wrong. I mean, absolutely, think of it.
Notice what Trump says, of a certain persuasion. Then he attacks the evidence, saying, have you ever seen the ledger? We saw it all. It was the evidence. Perhaps he was asleep during the trial, whining about the cold, or more likely just lying. But we saw all the evidence.
I pay a lawyer. He wasn't a fixer. He was a lawyer at the time. I pay a lawyer, and he's a lawyer. It's called legal expense. A bookkeeper, without ever speaking to me, because she did the right thing, who's been with me for years, marks it down as legal expense. In other words, I paid a legal expense. It's marked down as a legal expense. And they say that's a fraud. What am I going to call it? Did you ever see a ledger? Do you ever study accounting? The line's like about an inch long and an eighth of an inch wide. You can't write the story. But there is no story. If you pay a legal expense and you write it down as a legal expense.
Then Trump states that he wants to end the Department of Education. I'll show you that.
I'll give you an example.
Is it every month?
I'll give you mentioned
every year.
Yeah, you mentioned the kids. So we're going to cut the Department of Education, let it be run locally. We have this
end
mess.
the Department of Education?
End
Federal
it,
Department of
other
Education?
than to have a little tiny coordination. You know, it would be nice to make sure that everybody's
Small.
teaching English.
Yeah.
You know, let them learn English, okay?
I love this.
But no, we're cutting the Department of Education.
it.
I was ready to do it before. And then, again, the COVID really, if we didn't throw money at that, you would have had a depression. We would have been in a depression. And when I got out, the stock market was higher than when just before COVID came in.
So that will be the
We're gonna
first
be
thing.
doing-
That will be the first
Oh,
department.
it's going to
you're
happen.
gonna
That's
cut.
going to happen immediately.
I love it.
We're going to do like Department of Interior. There's so many things you can do.
Trump then claims that Americans who don't support him are more dangerous to the country than Russia and China.
People don't want to be impeached. They don't want to be indicted by these scoundrels who are much more evil than people. I'm telling you, China and Russia, they're not the problem. We have a problem from within that's really bad. So he let us down. The key to really good government, where we had like Lighthizer and some of these people that were really good, it's the person that's at the top. If you get the right person, it's like magic.
Then Trump denies the reality of climate change, suggesting it's beneficial because it would provide more beachfront property.
The single biggest threat, not global warming. When they say that the seas will rise over the next 400 years, 1/8 of an inch, you know, which means basically you have a little more beachfront property, okay? Think of it. The seas are going to rise. Who knows? But this is the big threat. I watched Biden the other night. It's the greatest existential. He loves that word because it's a big word, and he thinks he knows. He doesn't even know what the hell the word means. He goes, it's the greatest existential threat to our country, global warming.
Trump then complains about the fairness of the trial process, claiming that Justice Merchan denied all their objections while sustaining those from the prosecution, which is patently untrue. Justice Merchan granted many of Trump's legal team's requests and denied several from the prosecution, yet Trump continues to push this conspiracy narrative.
Well, when you object to something, your lawyers object, good lawyers, professional lawyers, good records, nice people. You know, I've had a lot of lawyers that weren't nice, and sometimes you're better off that way. These are really fine people. They'd object, not accepted, not accepted, not accepted. When the government, meaning the DA, Bragg, when he said something, all right, good, that's fine. Go ahead, more.
Finally, Trump addresses the impact on his wife Melania, claiming it's unfair that she has to hear all the salacious details about his alleged affairs. He laments that she no longer campaigns by his side and is rarely seen publicly. Trump insists these accusations are false and part of a propaganda effort.
I have a wonderful wife who has to listen to this stuff all the time. They do that for this reason. They do that, all these salacious names that they put in of these people. And I'm not even allowed to defend myself because of a gag order. Think of it. But they put this stuff in to create havoc. These are bad people. I know everything they're doing. I know every move they make. I get it. But a lot of people don't. But it's tougher. I think it's probably, in many ways, it's tougher on my family than it is in me.
How's Melania doing?
She's fine, but I think it's very hard for her. I mean, she's fine. But it's, you know, she has to read all this crap.
Well, there you have it, folks. Judge for yourself. Does this look like someone who should be trusted with nuclear codes? To me, it looks like an unhinged, unstable liar. Thanks for watching.